Greetings, fellow Helldivers. The new Warbond Pass is here, but perhaps even more importantly, we also have new ship modules. So before we review exactly how good the new weapons and equipment are in the Democratic Detonation Warbond, let's take a look at what the new ship modules are and how they're going to affect the game. Because I'm sure lots of people are actually far more excited about this than the Warbond, because they're completely free. As long as you've got the samples and the requisition, you can start unlocking them right now. First up, we have got superior packing methodology. Resupply boxes now refill support weapons with the maximum number of carryable magazines. As you can see from the list of affected stratagems, this applies to every single support weapon. This is going to be absolutely huge for the likes of the spear and the recoilless rifle. I feel like for ammo efficiency, this is definitely a massive one that you want to unlock ASAP. Next up, for orbital cannons, we have atmospheric monitoring. Orbital HE barrage spread has been reduced by 15%, both for the 120mm and the 380mm. This is probably the one I will leave to unlock until the very end, because they've already reduced the spread of the barrages, so they're pretty damn accurate as it is. And if you make them too accurate, then they won't have the spread that you want, and they won't be able to fully reach larger bases. So I'd be really happy actually if this one was a toggle, so you could choose depending on larger or smaller missions if you wanted this enabled or not, because sometimes the larger spread is better. So I'll definitely be leaving this one to unlock until the end. The next one for the hangar, this is huge. This is one of my favorites, the XXL weapons bay. Eagle stratagems which hold multiple bombs now drop additional bombs. So airstrikes are bigger and better, smoke strikes are bigger and better, as are cluster bombs and as are napalm strikes. They all chuck down additional bombs. So please don't confuse this with the expanded weapons bay. This isn't additional uses, but it means that each use is bigger and more powerful. And now we'll move on to enhanced combustion, with the Eagle Napalm Strike getting its second buff of the patch, because once you unlock Enhanced Combustion, fire damage from these three stratagems will be increased by 25%. That's the Incendiary Mines, the Flamethrower, and of course the Napalm Airstrike. Next up, we've got one for all of you lightning lovers. With Circuit Expansion unlocked, your lightning arcs fired from the Arc Thrower, the Tesla Tower, and future lightning-based weapons will now jump to one additional enemy, making them even more effective against groups of enemies. And last but most certainly not least, this is going to be another one of my favorites. Sentries take 50% less damage from explosions, meaning hopefully your own mortars and grenade launchers won't accidentally blow them up as often as they would. And also against bots, they might live a bit longer now. I'm thinking rocket devastators, I'm thinking cannon mortars, I'm thinking the automaton's own artillery barrages. They actually have a lot of explosions. And hopefully this is a significant enough improvement that sentries are now more viable and won't get blown up as often. As you can see, it affects every single one. When you unlock blast absorption, sentries are now just going to take 50% less damage from all explosions. These are fantastic, but if you hadn't noticed, pretty much every single one requires a hell of a lot of rare samples specifically. So I don't know about you, but I'm going to be grinding a hell of a lot of difficulty level 5 to 7 missions, trying to get all of the rare samples I need to get these all unlocked. Now that you know how incredibly awesome these new ship modules are, let's review the Warbond Pass and see if it's worth buying. The last time I did this, I went through the whole Warbond first, and then I showed off all the new stuff in action. I actually found this super boring. I don't think it's the best way to do the video for you, so I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to show you everything in action as we're talking about it. Firstly versus the bots, and then later on versus the bugs, because bots are far more important right now, with them taking over half of the goddamn galactic frontier. So we're also going to be skipping page 1 for now and going straight into the new explosive weapon, the R36 Eruptor. This has almost instantly become one of my favorite weapons in the game. Let me give you the 5 main pros and the 5 main cons so you can make your own decision. Firstly, it has got huge splash damage and it can easily take out groups of enemies in one shot. Just in my short time testing this weapon, I managed to take out a group of 5 or 6 raiders with one bullet. That makes this weapon very, very ammo efficient. At 5 rounds per magazine with 12 magazines, it's got 60 bullets, but every single one is so powerful and so impactful. As I've already said, it can take out groups of smaller enemies instantly with just a single shot. It can also one-shot Striders due to its explosive damage, and it can two-shot Devastators, pretty much no matter where you hit them. I truly cannot undersell the power of this weapon. And on top of that, something that many people will be really happy to hear is we once again have a primary weapon with really, really good armor penetration. So much so, combined with the explosive damage, that it can even take out factories. I'm assuming this means it can also take out cargo containers and bug nests, but we'll review that in the bug section of the video. Now, for the negatives of this weapon, it is very slow to aim, which means it's quite a hard weapon to learn. At first, when I was using this, it really didn't feel good. I didn't think I was going to like this at first, because whether you are just aiming from the hip or you are aiming down sight, if your target's moving around, there is a lot of weapon sway when trying to move your weapon and re-aim at them. So definitely something to keep in mind. However, because of the explosive damage and because of the huge splash radius, as long as you hit somewhere near them, you should be fine. Also, it is very slow to reload, and I'm not just talking reloading a new magazine, but even just putting the next round in the chamber does take a few seconds. So this is not something to use if you are being pressured by lots of enemies, especially at close range. And talking of close range, it can and will blow you up at close range. Definitely switch to your secondary weapon or your support weapon depending on what you're using if enemies are getting up in your face, because the explosion can and will kill you too. And finally, it is very ineffective against big targets. As you can see here, it is doing next to nothing against this Hulk. I'm assuming enough shots in the rear ventilation shaft would eventually kill it, but honestly for me, it's not really a negative that it's ineffective against big targets. At the end of the day, this is just your primary weapon. This shouldn't be something that can kill everything. That's why you've got support weapons, that's why you've got stratagems. The fact that it's really effective against everything, apart from Hulks, tanks, and the other more recent big threats, to me makes this actually just such an insanely good addition to our arsenal. And in most situations, I think the R36 Eruptor may become my new favorite primary weapon. And now let's talk about the new marksman rifle, the BR14 Adjudicator. Next up, where to start with the Adjudicator, the new marksman rifle. It has the highest capacity but the lowest damage of the 3 marksman rifles currently in the game. And I personally feel like the damage is just far too low. Unless you get a headshot, it can't even one-shot standard raiders. The literal most pathetic, weakest bot in the game that every primary weapon should be able to one-shot, especially a marksman rifle. Maybe not an SMG, but a marksman rifle should be able to one-shot a raider. Come on. This thing is far too weak. You can change it from single shot to auto, but considering the pretty hefty recoil and the low capacity of the magazine, I don't recommend doing this. You're going to miss half your shots, and it's going to become even less efficient than it already is. The scope is really good, and it can be super accurate at range if you're using it more like a sniper rifle. But if you're doing that, the damage just isn't there. To have any decent amount of DPS, you need to be up closer so that less shots are missing because of the crazy amount of recoil, and that's just not what marksman rifles are designed for. I counted and it took 11 shots, nearly half a magazine, just to shoot the leg off of a Strider. Even pistols can do this. And when I had a Devastator coming at me, it took a whole entire magazine to take down one Devastator. This truly, to me, is not a very good weapon at all. and considering it reckons it has medium armor piercing, it cannot penetrate the armor of certain things that I thought it should be able to. Honestly, for the magazine capacity to be this low and the recoil to be this high, it needs better damage. Something needs to be changed on this weapon to make it viable. So far of the two weapons tested, we have got the Eruptor, which is just absolutely amazing. One of the new best contenders in the game. And then the Adjudicator, which just to me has no redeeming qualities, unfortunately. Anyway, with that said, we're now going to talk about the new grenade against the bots, the Thermite grenade. And my friends, strap in because this is a good one. I love this grenade. Again, for now, we're doing all of our testing against bots. I will show you exactly how effective all of this equipment is against bugs very, very shortly. But let me just tell you, aside from the fact that it doesn't have any explosive power, therefore it can't blow the doors off cargo containers and it can't blow up the likes of factories and bug nests, aside from that, this effectively becomes a fifth stratagem because of how effectively it can be used in other situations. It burns for a significant amount of time and ignores all armor, meaning one thermite grenade will take out even a heavy devastator. It also triggers an explosion near the end of its fuse, which does cause a bit of explosive AoE splash damage as well, meaning a few thermite grenades chucked in a similar vicinity and stuck on the bigger threats will take out a huge group of enemies. For instance, if you've got a big group of varied enemies and you stick one on a Devastator, one on a Berserker, and one on a Strider, it will not only easily take out all three of these targets, but any Raider and any other smaller target that happens to be anywhere near the vicinity. Honestly, these are so powerful for both burning through the health of heavily armored enemies and also taking out groups of smaller enemies too. As I already mentioned, you do need to be conscious that they will not destroy factories, they will not destroy bug nests. Even with that explosion they trigger, as you can see here, I throw 4 thermite grenades on this factory. They all blow up in various different locations and it does nothing. So make sure if you are using this, you're bringing some other way of dealing with things like this, such as the new Eruptor explosive weapon, and then you're good to go, because honestly, the thermite grenades are so bloody powerful. You can just chuck a couple of these on a Hulk and then run away and hide whilst you're reloading your weapons, getting your health back, replenishing your shield, whatever it is you want to do, and the thermite grenade will deal with the rest for you. I truly think, at least against the bots, we'll find out whether this is the case against bugs in just a second, but the R36 Eruptor and the Thermite Grenade could well be a new meta loadout. These two pieces of equipment synergize so well together and make you an absolute wrecking ball. And up next, my friends, let's test the new equipment on the bugs. And straight off the bat, I can say the Eruptor is perhaps even better against the bugs than it was against the bots. That splash damage comes in really handy against these swarms of Terminids that will be charging you. The only big downside, I'd say, is that the bugs have many more melee threats than the bots do, so you need to be very careful about accidentally getting yourself blown up. However, the fantastic news is how damn powerful this thing is against so many threats. Even on higher difficulties, when the bile spewers are armored, it will still one-shot them with a direct hit to the face. And perhaps even more awesome to know is how quickly this thing can melt chargers. The first time I encountered a charger, I was very careful, dodging out the way of the attacks and shooting it in the rear, and it went down in 4 hits. The next time I found one, it was around 80 meters away, so I used this as an opportunity to test the range of the weapon and also its effective range. And despite the fact I wasn't shooting the charger in the back for all the shots, the charger still went down in 3 hits. The Eruptor's penetration and explosion damage is that good that it still took out the charger with 1 magazine from 80 meters away. This is a primary weapon, my friends. This isn't a stratagem. This isn't a support weapon. This is just a gun you can bring in with you. It is so insanely powerful. Now for the bad news. That is the fact that both the Adjudicator and the Thermite are not very good against the bugs at all. We already knew that the Adjudicator wasn't very good. Against bugs, it's even worse. It is inconsistent at even killing pouncers and scavengers in one shot. and it doesn't really fare any better against any other bugs either. It's decent against Brood Commanders and Hive Guards, better than I thought it would be. This is kind of its only redeeming quality against bugs, but honestly, I really do not see any reason for you to use this new Marksman Rifle over any other of your favorite weapons. And now, as we talk about the Thermite, it seems that its armor penetration is amazing. Because obviously being pure thermal damage over time, it has 100% armor penetration. It does not care about armor. But the actual damage output is clearly abysmal, because it took 6 full thermites to take out a charger. I was just running loops around this charger, resupplying and throwing thermites again and again and again until it went down, and it took 6 full sticks of thermite. So even though it does penetrate all armor, the actual damage output is pretty abysmal. And this is consistent when used against all bugs. 1 stick of Thermite can't even take out a Brood Commander, whereas it can take out a Devastator, which to me is crazy. Brood Commanders must have so much more health than I realized. So yeah, Thermite isn't that good against bugs at all. So for bugs, I would probably just stick to your impact grenades. However, as we thought, the Eruptor will blow up bug nests, and because it does have the power to blow up nests and factories, even though I wasn't able to test this, I can confirm that means it will be able to blow the doors off of containers as well. Now that we've covered the weapons that you can unlock on day 1, let me review page 3 of the Warbond, and then I'll take you through the armor sets, and also how good the new booster is. So next up, before I review the new armor sets, the only important things we haven't looked at from the Warbond Pass so far is the items on page 3. We have got a new pistol. This is the grenade pistol with 600 damage. This is probably going to be absolutely insanely powerful. I cannot wait to try this one out. It does only have 1 round per mag, which makes perfect sense. And the recoil and the fire rate don't really matter all that much because it literally only has 1 grenade. Hopefully it's as powerful in actuality as it is on paper, because that could be incredibly awesome. And then we have got the CB9 exploding crossbow. Now, just looking at the stat line, this seems like an even better version of the Eruptor. It has more damage, the same amount of capacity, and less recoil. Now, until we've unlocked it and been able to test it, I don't know if this is going to be the case. But if this literally is just the Eruptor, but with an even better stat line, this could be very, very broken. The crossbow doesn't appear to have any armor penetration whatsoever. It doesn't say light, it doesn't say medium, nothing like that at all. So actually, the Eruptor's probably still going to be far, far better. Now let's take a look at the new armor sets. The first one you unlock is the CE27 Groundbreaker, which is the exact same, literally the exact same as the SA12 Servo Assisted from the first Premium Warbond Pass. It's a medium armor with the exact same armor rating, speed and stamina regen, and the same servo assisted passive. This isn't a bad thing, because I personally think the servo assisted passive is perhaps the best one in the game, and medium armor is always a really safe bet. So really, the only reason to use this is if you prefer the look cosmetically over the SA12. Personally, I think they're both great. This is the armor I've been using for pretty much the entirety of this video, so definitely a solid choice if you didn't grab the SA12. On the next page, you've got the CE07 Demolition Specialist. This is a light armor, which increases your accuracy when crouched and prone, and increases the amount of grenades you can carry. Very interesting stat line there, very interesting passive to go along with a light armor. Very curious to see how people will put this one to use, but it could make for some really, really cool changes to the meta. And finally, for the armor on page 3, the FS55 Devastator. I absolutely adore this. A heavy armor, which makes you 50% more resistant to explosive damage. Having this armor passive on a heavy armor set in a pass where all of the weapons deal explosive damage, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Wearing this armor set, wielding the Eruptor, throwing out your impact grenades, you are going to be an unstoppable juggernaut of explosive damage. I think that's the dream setup right there for people who love their explosions in Helldivers 2. I must say, I absolutely adore this Warbond pass compared to the previous one. The fact that we have such a variety of armor sets and weapons, the previous one just seems to be the same thing again and again, just reskinned from page to page, whereas this is really varied. The weapons are super fun, the armor sets actually matter. I think this is going to be a great addition to the game that really shakes up people's playstyles and adds a lot of new viable builds into the game. And the icing on the cake before we wrap up the video, the new booster is actually really good. We've reviewed boosters previously that have reduced the cooldown or the timer of this, that and the other, and they've done very, very minor things. Whereas this one will reduce the extraction time from 2 minutes down to 1 minute 40. After seeing that the evacuation ship only takes 1 minute 40 seconds to call in with the new booster equipped, I wondered if this was a flat 20 seconds or if it was a percentage. So I found a mission with the complex stratagem plotting operation modifier, increasing call-in time by 50%, which also, as you know, affects the evacuation time. And as you can see, it takes it from 3 minutes to 2 minutes 30. So this is a percentage. It actually is even more effective when facing this operation modifier. So this is a really good booster to take if you want to make sure you're getting out in the quickest time possible. Especially if you were up against it like me, and you're up to your eyeballs in bugs, you have no ammo and no stims left, you've already run out the timer so you can't call in any stratagems, and you are otherwise completely fucked. If it wasn't for this new booster, I wouldn't have made it out alive then. This is actually a really big difference. And that, my friends, is everything you need to know about the huge important updates from today's content drop. So with that, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.